Well, give me just a minute here, guys. All right, I think we've got an accurate count on everybody. So I am, the victim today of my second COVID vaccination. And it has not gone well so far. Got it yesterday afternoon, was fine last night, was fine when I got up this morning. About 9 o'clock it hit. A lot of soreness, muscle and joint aches, headache, fever, chills, the fun stuff, the stuff that makes life worth living. But it's not anything I can't work through. Zach, that's exactly where I want to be right now. Your little profile picture, that's where I want to be right now.
Thank you.
But I'll get there. We just got to get through this first. So I'm hoping and planning to actually get through all of this. Let me make one adjustment here. I'll try to make an adjustment. Okay. All right. So today, what we'll do today is obviously go over your assignments, do the critique on those. Then I think what I'm planning to do, if I can hold it together, it always seems like every time we log in, I'm like on death's door here. I don't know. I'm not that kind of person, but just you've had the benefit of seeing the worst of me. We have we want to go to each one of you individually and do a little quick couple of minutes assessment and tell you where you're at this point, grade wise and so forth, which I have not done yet, but I think I can do that on the fly, and they need to be in by Monday, so we'll work on that. And then the new topic for today, I think what I'll do is once we do the critiques, we'll go right into that and save the one-on-one assessments for the end. That way, when we send you into a breakout room, once you're done with that, and I move on to the next person, you're done and you can go. So hopefully you won't be the last one, but you never know. We're just going to go down the list, and it won't be alphabetical or anything like that. Now, if things take a turn for the worst, and by the worst, I mean like a sudden case of explosive diarrhea. Sorry, too much information, I know, but hasn't happened yet. But if it does, then what I'll do is the new material that we were going to cover today, I will do a recording of that and post that. I'll send you a link to the recording and you can watch it that way. But we're hoping to get through it live. Right now, I feel passable. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so let me jump right into my screen share. And we'll take a look at your images now. So Carly, you're up first. You did minimalist and shapes. This is your minimalist, which it truly is. I also think that it kind of qualifies as a simplicity type image as well. But minimalist typically is looking at small small details. Sorry, the brain's a little foggy too. Small details of larger objects, and I even in an image like this, you want to have questions. You want to look at an image and say, what exactly is going on here? So my question, obviously, is that three-prong plug is a little non-standard. I have no idea what that is. Can you fill us
It's
in
a
on?
lighting cable for theater lights.
Ah, okay. All right. So, and that kind of makes sense then with the extension cord because both are going to work together. I gotcha. Um, Again, when you simplify an image, you leave little to complain about or little to critique. It's pretty flat, soft lighting, but we do have a shadow on this back wall or whatever it is that gives us some sense of depth or distance from that wall. So again, not a whole lot you can say about it. Other than, I would, if I were going to shoot this, if somebody said, all right, here's the picture that we want you to take, we want you to do these two cables together. My first thought, well, let me ask you guys. My first thought is always in one arena. Like there's one thing that I always put ahead of everything else when it comes to photographing something or designing a shot. And I tend to try to look at what I can do along those lines to jazz it up. Anybody want to hazard a guess what that might be? Trying to get you all where I can see you here. There we go. So, we've been talking about composition, but there are a number of other elements that go into a good photograph. And composition is important, but I would not put it at the top of the list. Does anybody want to take a guess what I think is at the top of the list? And this is just my opinion. I see wheels turning, but nobody's willing to. I'd rather you be wrong than not say anything. So
would you want to do lighting?
Yeah.
Lighting is pretty important.
That is always my number one concern is lighting. Now you can overcome a mediocre lit shot. I don't want to say it that way. If the lighting is really bad, you're never going to overcome that. But for a shot that is, sort of mediocre, you can overcome the lack of lighting with other elements, with a great composition or some impactful look. So again, when we're dealing with mundane subjects like this, that's always my first thought is what can I do to really throw this? I probably would have, honestly, I don't know, I would have lit that with a flashlight from the side or used LEDs or put some color.
Like from a distance because I used a zoom lens and I got it just at the right angle that it was hitting the cyc but not hitting anything else.
Gotcha.
I used the flash on the camera, so I was limited with how close I could really get to it.
Okay. Yeah, and of course, remember the viewer doesn't know that. The viewer only knows what they see in front of them. So, we can have a wish list of things we'd like to see in a picture. It doesn't mean it was feasible or possible or anything like that. And really, when I tell you these things, what I'm saying is not so much, wow, you blew it, you should have done it this way. What I'm saying is next time you do something like this, keep that in mind and see if, hey, what can I do? Even if it's somebody that's standing 30 feet away and they've got a little handheld spotlight or something, anything that would just, create a little more drama. That's really the only knock that I've got against it. And it's not really a knock. It's just a suggestion for the future. I actually like your other shot a lot better. This one is shapes. And you sent your raw files, your NEF files. I don't know if you had intended to do that or not, but
yeah.
Okay, so I'm glad you did actually, because it let me do something. When I look at this image, the first thing I would change, there are two things actually, but the first one is what? Anybody want to
take? Is it the white balance?
Yeah, the white balance. And the fact that it is an NEF file lets me do that. Let me see if I can get this. So are you seeing, you should be, I see a green line around it. You
Yeah.
should be seeing that. Okay. So it's a real simple matter. Since you are wearing something that's kind of neutral, I can just take that eyedropper, come over and find an area, not the brightest white or the blackest black, but something that has a little detail. Click on that and bang, there's our shot. Now we've got a very much more accurate white balance. Now, in saying that, and I'll show you two side by side, sometimes people do this intentionally because they're like, well, I wanted it to look cold. I wanted it to look uninviting or something along those lines. And that's fine. If there's a, if there's a reason for doing that, that's fine. I just wanted to show you how easy it really was to just, bang and pull that back. The other thing is probably, yeah, a little bit. I think because
I was gonna do that before I submitted it, but then it changed it to a JPEG, and I was like, well, I took it as a RAW, so I want to submit it as a RAW.
Well, you could, next time you want to do that, go ahead and submit the RAW file and submit the JPEG, because it's a very small file. It's going to upload quickly, and then I can see where you started from and where you ended up. Because what I see, to me, the main distraction is along the left side there, that pipe that goes up. I'm just going to open it up and take a look at it.
Yeah.
Just to see how much of a difference it'll make. And I'll probably have to stop sharing this and share that.
I was like, oh, it's not where it like that, but I was going to crop it out, but I was like, I'm going to just.
Well, again, the fact that you even thought that, that's good. That means that you are thinking along those lines, and that's really, that's a big step. So I would come in, and I'm probably going to need a little bit more adjustment after the fact, because I can see the curvature on the left-hand side isn't exactly what I want. But if I crop that, and then I'm going to convert this to a regular layer so I can transform it. And I'm just going to take that upper corner and pull that out to kind of match everything else. And there's a little bit of, I'm going to go into warp, because there's just a little bit of bowing on top and on the left. Well, of course, if we do that, then we're going to have to recrop it, but that's okay. You can use warp to kind of do a lot of things like that. Let me pull the crop in just a little tighter. Yeah, so again, if you go back and forth, and I'm sure you're already aware of this, let me take a snapshot of that. I got to find my snapshot button. There we go. And we go back to that. Yeah, there's just there's a little bit of extra stuff going on there. But with this one, now we've got a couple of things. We've got shapes. We have not only the squares, but we have well, we do have a diagonal in that that top railing. Then we also have horizontal lines in behind.
What about framing?
Yeah, framing. This would be another. In fact, for framing, so you could crop it like this, or you could go in completely onto that center square if you wanted to do that. Either way is fine. I might have considered that, just simply because if I take out the lower part of your body altogether, actually, let me just do it and see what we get. It might be even more interesting. I don't know. Not that there's anything wrong with the lower half of your body. I'm just saying that when we take away, and it is it's going to be a very symmetrical composition. Yeah, now we don't really know what position you're in. We don't, in the other one, we can kind of see you're sitting down low. You're, in this one, we're sort of like, and again, I would stretch this a little bit, the upper right and the lower left to straighten that out. But now we're like, well, maybe this thing is, 5 feet in the air and she's just standing behind it, or 4 feet. You said you were really short, didn't you? Aren't you the one who told me that? Somebody said they were really short. So yeah, it might be 3 feet off the ground. I don't know. But anyway, anytime you can create mystery or questions, that's usually a good thing as well. And with cropping, it doesn't hurt you to try, because you can always back out. If you're like, oh, I tried that, didn't like it, just go back through your history or close it without saving it or something like that and get back to where you started. But when I look now at that one compared to where we started, let me get this down here. Yeah, I've eliminated a lot of things that keep me from getting to the main focus of the subject. And I kind of spent a lot of time on that just simply because I actually like the image. I really like it. I think this was a great find for shapes. I think it worked really well. And it's again, more than just the square or rectangular shape in the foreground. You've got some other shapes in there as well. I think so. The lighting on this is it's a little flat, and but it's very soft. And I do see a tonal gradation. I do see a distinct highlight and shadow side. The right side of the image, which is your left side, there's a little bit more shade on that. So that's actually a good reason to turn your head in the direction that you did to let that happen a little more. If you were facing right onto the camera, it might be a little more impact, especially cropped in really tight. But this one probably works a little bit better lighting wise. Now, let me give you one little hint of advice, because we haven't really done a whole lot or talked a whole lot about photographing people. We have a little bit, but not some of the do's and don'ts. And none of these are hard, fast rules. This is just a suggestion to you. So with your eyes where they are in this image, what happens is that we have the majority of what is actually in your eye is the white of your eye rather than the pupil of your eye. And so we could have probably achieved the same thing by keeping your face in that position and just moving your eyes a little more like halfway back between where they are and where the camera is. So you'd still be looking off camera, but we wouldn't have a lot of the white. We'd have a little more, and I can see a catch light in your eye, which is great. You know, we'd see even a little bit more of that if you brought it in. This is just a minor suggestion to keep in mind when you're dealing with faces and things like that. But overall, I'm going to close this up. Overall, I think that is actually a pretty good shot. I like that one a lot.
Thank you.
So that gets the nod from me for our best of show contestant. Nothing wrong with the other one, but this one's just way more dynamic.
No, I agree. That one's my favorite.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right, so Hannah, hopefully we can keep you online long enough that we can get through yours without getting you bumped off. But so this one is, it says abstract circles, and it is. I think you did a real good job on this. I think even, so for me, if I were shooting this, I'm almost positive I would have really centered this up and tried to get an equal amount of that blue circle on either side. But with that being said, that's an artistic choice. And would it have been a little more dramatic as far as shapes are concerned? Maybe, but we already have a lot of drama here. These little circles, each one is acting like a reflecting lens. And I really like that. I like the fact that we've got all this color going on, you know, the yellows, the reds, the blues, and all of that in each one of them, but each one of them is different because they're in a slightly different position. So that's kind of cool. I like the way that worked out a lot. So we haven't looked at really doing a lot with processing images yet. We will. We'll talk about that a little bit. I mean, we've looked at processing raw files a little bit, and you probably could have really made this pop a little bit more with a raw file if you have a raw file with this. But again, I'm being a little nitpicky. Overall, it's a pretty good shot, and it's a very good job of recognizing what you had as far as shapes were concerned. So let me go down through. This one is another abstract. Which it kind of is. Abstracts, though, typically when you look at an abstract, you're not really sure what it is. Like it's sometimes either a smaller section of something, or it is just something we're not used to seeing in a particular way. And that's, you know, that typically, so I see this more as color contrast. I love the yellow played against the green in the background. Again, I think we probably have a little more up on top than we need. I would have, maybe even on the bottom, I don't know, maybe I would have cropped it to the bottom of the main group of flowers and just above the top, just to see. That probably would have turned it into a horizontal image. But it still would have been a striking image. The good news is that this was done on a sunny day, but there is some direction to the sun. It's coming in and creating some shadows, and shadows are always good. They give us that feeling of form and dimension. So it was a good job on that. Now you have a couple of images. These last two are repetition.
Yeah.
And of the two, so who thinks that, well, what do you think between these two is is to me a better image? Anybody want to take a guess? Actually,
I think it's the top.
So there are, as I look at it even closer now, there are pluses and minuses about both of them. That top one shoots pretty much straight down through, and I do like that. I'm a little bit like I want to see just the bottom of that triangle just a little bit more. Like I want to see just a hair below it. But I think given the fact that the other one kind of goes through at an angle, I think you're right. I think I do like that one. However, I know that that one can be improved a little bit as well. And I just want to open it and take a gander at that. So let's.
This is also shapes, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And so as we've said before, anytime you work more than one compositional element into a file, the better off you are. So let me I'm going to try to grab the right-hand side here. I just want to see what happens if we really, really pull that in. I like the top. I love the chains up there, so I'm not going to crop anything off there. But now I've got these triangular shapes, which are diagonals, right? Two diagonals in the triangle. We've got the repetition, we've got shapes, we've got really the bulk of the color is in those blue triangles. So what is this, by the way?
This is down at the Heritage Park playground. So
really? Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I know that place well. I just don't, I go past it all the time. I just don't go in it very often. So, all right, that's cool. Yeah, again,
that
so.
one in the, like the circle.
Oh, they're both down there?
They're both down there.
Okay, let me get back into that. So again, those were, they're both very good jobs of recognizing what you had in front of you and making it match the compositional element that we were looking for. But I do think in looking at it, that there's you can make a case for saying, well, I offset it a little bit. I also wanted to bring rule of thirds in, but this is such a dynamic image when you're dealing with shapes, especially. And there's really nothing on the right side of that image that, I mean, there are some shapes there, but these are the ones, and the repetition is the thing that I think makes this sing. So I probably would have cropped it in a little more like what we just looked at. But again, those are subjective decisions. And if you like it better this way, no one should argue with that. So between these two, which do you like better?
I think the better of them is definitely the one with the circles.
Yeah, I just think there's, if you had cropped this one in, I would have disagreed with you. I would have taken that one. But I think on this one, the interplay that we have with all of these little reflecting lenses showing all of that color, and yet we're not seeing you, are we?
No.
I don't see you in any of those. Did you have a flash on your camera? Is that what I'm seeing?
I didn't use the flash at all, actually, when I took it.
I'm wondering what caused that little highlight.
I had a yellow sweater on, so maybe it was like the reflection of that. But that's all I can think of.
It actually does look like a light source. It could have actually been, the sun for that matter.
Yeah, it might have been.
Coming through a cloud or something like that. But yeah, this, again, it kind of reminds me of Chinese checkers a little bit. All right, so those two are, actually I like both of those. And I like your flowers. It's just, again, looking at the exercise and what we were trying to do, I think the other two were a little stronger. And the colors in all of them work really well. All right, Jaden is up next. So we have an abstract. I agree. That's exactly what you've got here. Now this is it's still, for those of us that spend any time in playgrounds, we do kind of know what this is, but you've still reduced it to the point where, even though we know what it is, it's definitely an intentional elimination of detail. So, you know, and the fact that we've got these funky shapes in there too, they're not all, they sort of look like Fred Flintstone's, you know, it looks like a house that Fred would live in, something like that. And so there would have been a decision here about leaving that little piece of sky at the top or cropping that out. But the problem is, if you crop that out, well, first of all, it does work a little bit with the color contrast. So you've got a blue sky, you know, yellow foreground. Those two work together well. And then the other thing is, if you did crop that out, oh, excuse me, you would crop right into the center of at least one of those openings. I don't think I would like that. And you still have a little bit of blue sky through one of the openings anyway. So I think cropping wise, you're probably about as good with this one as you could have gotten. You know, unless you just, you know, I don't know what there is below that, unless it just dropped down a little bit. But overall, that one works pretty well. This one, actually, the last two are repetition. I'm trying to get that off the image there. So yeah, it is. The only downside to this, I'm going to say, is exposure. You know, when we've lost, you know, highlights, you know, obviously the sun's hitting, you know, pretty strongly on this, but the highlights on the top of these posts and on the leaves are pretty blown out. And if I envision this, if I can, you know, I don't know if you have a raw file of it, but if I envision this as being underexposed from what we see here by a stop and a half or even 2 stops, I think the color would have really popped even more. But again, as far as compositionally, yep, absolutely repetition. So you have repetition on the left side. You have, what's he have on the right side?
Isn't it like an S line?
Yeah, exactly. You have an S curve on the right. And so you don't normally get to play one of those things against the other. So it was a good choice. You could have cropped that out, or you could move the camera to the left and just gone for the post. But the fact that you left that in allowed them to play against each other. And I kind of like that. And then your last one is a variation of that. I think.
It is, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see the shorter ones in there now. I didn't see them at first. Yeah, so we've got in this one, it creates a repetition pattern that's a bit of a leading line. And this one just kind of cuts straight across. So given the comments that I've made so far to everybody else's image, what do you think I might suggest you try on this one?
Is it like different lighting?
No, I kind of like the lighting. It's definitely side lit. You do have some shadowing coming in. The exposure is, again, a little bit hot, but I'm thinking more along the lines of compositionally. And I'm going to open that. We'll take a look. What if we used our favorite tool that we've been using and created this slim line? Actually, I wonder if we could rotate it a little bit, kind of straighten that bottom line up. Yeah, I kind of feel like that's a little stronger as far as composition is concerned, because that's really your subject. If you go back and look,
is it symmetry now?
It could also be that, absolutely. You know, when you look at this, we've got a lot of stuff going on, particularly what's above this line right here, where you start to get into the sky, because anything that's really overly bright is going to draw your eye, just like anything really dark will. And so I want to kind of enjoy this bottom part of the image, and that top part, because it's so bright, is kind of pulling me away. Whereas that, you know, I'm forced right there, and you've reduced it now. Well, actually, both the original and this one has reduced this to more of a 2-dimensional shot, which isn't what we always want to do, but sometimes it does work. And in this case, I think it does work. We don't really need a lot of depth. We just want to see height and width. So the only other thing I would have tried, and let me close this up, and we'll go back to bridge. Let's see if we have what our metadata tells us. So the aperture on this was f10. I probably would have really opened that up and blurred, even if we did crop it, I would have probably blurred as much of that background as possible and even set that foreground apart even more. So because of, so all three of your images definitely satisfy what we were going for. And even though the one that I'm recommending that we may, you might consider a change in cropping it down, I still like it even as it is. So you have to pick your image here, because they're all three, I'd say, relatively equal as far as their strengths are concerned.
Maybe the abstract one.
The first one?
Yep.
Gotcha. All right. But yeah, overall, just watch your exposure. Make sure that, you look at those highlights in an image. And there is, I didn't look to see what camera you shot this with. I know it's a Canon. It doesn't give the exact model, but it's a Canon EOS. So there is a place on the menu to turn on what's called a clipping warning. And what will happen is when you have an area in your image that is white without detail, meaning it's overexposed to the point where there's no detail there, it'll actually show up in your viewfinder as red, like a red overlay on that particular area. And anything that's underexposed will show up with a blue overlay on it. So and you can do that after the fact, like you can take the picture and then turn that on and just see if there's anything. They call that an out of gamut, meaning that it's the contrast is too high for the settings that you have to be able to handle it. But it would tell you right off the bat, wow, I've got a lot of red in this image. So if you got a little bit, it's not a big deal. Just same with blue. If there's a little bit here and there, no big deal. But there would have been a lot of it in this, and I think that would have alerted you and said, hey, maybe I should back off on the exposure just a little bit and make it just a little bit darker. So I'm hoping, and as I look at the schedule, once I am back to the land of the living, which will be a couple of weeks, because I'm not going to do anything. I'm not even going to consider anything face-to-face for the next 2 weeks until, I've kind of passed that threshold. Not so much even for me, but for you guys. I'm in a lot of high-risk areas every day, so I don't want to, that's the reason we've been virtual the whole time. But I would like to, so if I look at the calendar and I get to 2 weeks down the line, we have 1, 2, 3, we have 4 classes after that point that we could do face-to-face. And the cool thing is that as the weather is going to get nicer and nicer, we wouldn't even be necessarily locked into a computer lab. We could, we could go outside a little bit. I'd love to be able to help you guys a little bit with your specific cameras and finding features on your cameras that can help you with things like this. But we'll reevaluate that in a couple of weeks. The next 2 weeks, I know for sure, will be virtual still. And then the last 2 weeks, the last week is the test, and the week before that is a review. So there's really no reason to do either one of those face-to-face. So we really only have 4 classes that are options. Actually, I take that back. We have 3, because looking to, I think April 11th. Yeah, April 13th. I will be in Atlanta. So that week is going to be a pre-recorded class that I'll send you guys a link to, and you just watch the class and get the assignment from there. So really, there's only 3 potential classes that we can do face-to-face. And even honestly, even if we only did 1 or 2, I'd still like to have the opportunity to do that, because I know there's probably some things that I could help you guys out with along those lines. All right, so let's move on. Caleb's up next. I love these. So here's Caleb's abstract. It says dragon. So first of all, I know what this looks like, but what is it actually?
That's a green tree python.
It is an actual snake. Is this your snake?
No, this is Ogilvy's.
This is Ogilvy's. I was going to say, wow, that's. I don't want you as a neighbor if that's your snake, because that looks like a pretty good sized snake. Just based on the depth of field that I'm seeing here. And I don't know if we have what we have in the, no, it's not in the metadata. But yeah, that's a big looking snake, but I love what you did with it. I love the fact that we have a little bit of shape here. We have great color harmony throughout this thing. It is an abstract, even though we kind of know what it is, it still focuses on such a small area that I really enjoy that. The texture that it has. I think the lighting is probably the best that you could have hoped for on this. I think anything stronger or harsher would have created some much stronger shadows that I'm not sure. I like the soft feel that this has. So, we've got this, what you think is a rough, scaly, looking thing, but yet it's lit in a way that makes it look kind of soft. So a whole bunch of stuff here that was really done pretty well. I can't even give you, I don't think I could make a suggestion to you to improve this. I like it just the way it is. So great job on that one. And again, on recognizing what you had in front of you. And here's another job of seeing stuff that you see every day, but looking at it with a little bit of a different eye. So this is repetition. Yeah, thirsty. Yeah, I should have had water in here with me. That's what they keep telling me I need to do, is hydrate myself like crazy. So my only, now, and I do love some things about this without a doubt. I love the color harmony. We've got these greens and blues, and everything else is neutral. We've got great repetition. And I know you probably were shooting through the glass front of this vending machine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to open that glass front end and go in and straighten all those bottles out. Like maybe make all of the labels perfectly straight except one. One that would be right on that impact line somewhere, and do something different with it. That would have been, I'm just, again, this is my wish list because I know it wasn't possible. But if you can envision that, man, how cool would that have been? But it's still a great shot and a great recognition of what you had in front of you. I think the center line here that has the numbers on them, the A1 through A8, I think that is pretty straight. But something else, and maybe it's the height of the camera, is creating a little bit of a drop down along the top bottles, where the left side's a little bit lower. And I think that it might have been impossible to do in camera. So maybe just a little stretch like we did on one of the other images to pull that up a little bit. And then we would have this, completely symmetrical, repetitious image but even as it is, I still like it just the way you've done it. But between the two, Caleb, I'm not even giving you a choice. This is your image. This was definitely one of the best in here this week. And that's what I want to see, is stuff like that. It not only satisfied the assignment, but it's a pretty cool shot in general. That's something you should hang on to. All right, let's check. Now we're still good on time. So let's go on to Brooke. So Brooke's abstract, well, you have to help me out first of all and tell me what I'm looking at.
It's a medicine bottle full of like vitamin D pills. So they're like orange, but kind of also see-through.
And I'm guessing that the out of focus, because the whole image is out of focus, but I'm kind of guessing that was intentional. I would have done it out of focus, I think, to further eliminate the knowledge of what this is. So this, I actually have a background in my studio that looks like this. It's these out of focus gold bokeh rings that are actually Christmas lights out of focus. The entire background looks like this. And this would be a great shot to use at some point as a background. If you ever wanted to drop a new background into one of your images and play with it a little bit, this would be a cool one to use. So I would hang on to this. Again, there's nothing I can complain about here. It is an abstract. It is a close-up version of something that I can't identify. Are there any little minor things? Yeah, but they're so minor that I'm not even going to mention them. But as much as I like that shot, I think I like this one better. So this ticks a couple of boxes again. So we've got, this was your repetition, which it is. We've got these shapes that are repeated as you go up the wall. We also have viewpoint and perspective because of the angle that you shot them at. We have leading lines, even though, again, we don't have a subject at the top to lead to, but we still follow those lines. Not only the lines of the squiggly things that I don't know what they are, but we have the same thing with the shadows that they create. And so the shadows fill that gap between them perfectly. Like they don't overlap. Your shadows don't overlap your subject, I guess, as it goes up the wall. And I think that's pretty cool. And I love the fact that there's convergence. So we have that going as well, because they come from the bottom and they get closer together at the top. Good color contrast, because all of the color works out well against the neutral background. Yeah, just you did a lot of things right here. I see just a wee little bit of downward on the left side as opposed to the right, like right up here, right in this piece of trim or whatever it is that's coming across here, which just, pull it up a touch to straighten that out. And I think you've got a real heck of a shot here. You do anyway, but that's the only thing I can point at to say you might want to, try to just make this a little more perfect. But between the two, I mean, I like both of these. But I think that one is a little stronger because you have several of these compositional elements all working together in your, what are those things? They have eyes.
The worm on a strings. They're like the little fuzzy pieces of string, and they have fishing line attached to them, so it looks like they're moving on their own.
I am so out of touch. I have never seen those before. I don't know where, I guess I don't shop in the places that you shop. Where did you get them?
Amazon.
Amazon. Okay. I was thinking more like Spencer's or some place like that would have, just odd, unusual things. But yeah, Amazon has it all, don't they?
They do.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I think both of your images are strong, Brooke, but I do really, I think that one's probably a little bit more so just because it has so much more going on. We have let's auto resolve that. Good. So yeah, good job. You picked two of those compositional elements that you were able to, to illustrate really well.
Thank you.
All right, Max is up next, and we have his minimalist. Again, yep, absolutely. Can we tug that left side up just a hair, both on the mortar and maybe on this as well? Yeah, probably. That probably would make me feel better. But overall, I'm still looking at this as well done. So it is minimalist. We have, gone in tight on a normally recognizable object. You have incredible color harmony because everything in the image is neutral. You've got a rule of thirds composition. You've actually got a leading line with that downward piece of mortar coming right to the coin. So you've got shapes, even if you want to look at the circular pattern in that, I guess it's tile or cement block or something. Or I'm not sure what that is, actually. It's not cement block, is it?
I don't know.
As I look at the bottom of it, it looks more, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But anyway.
I think it might be like marble or something.
Marble. That's the word I was looking for, and I couldn't think of it. So yeah, I like everything you did here. Sometimes the simplest ideas can be the best. Like you don't have to overthink. You don't have to really come up with anything too awfully contrived. This was, I don't know how you came up with the idea. I don't know if did you think of the dime first or the background?
Well, I thought of the dime first because I had some coins and I didn't realize it until the start of this class. I would have used this quarter that I just found on my desk, but yeah, I had the coins and I was like, hey, that might be cool. So yeah. A
quarter would have been fine. It would have been obviously a little larger, but the dime still eclipses the borders of that mortar. So I don't have a problem either way. I think you definitely needed a silver coin. I wouldn't have used a penny. That would have.
I originally tried a penny, but I just didn't like it just because of the color in the background. And
Yeah, I like the fact that everything's neutral. And again, I probably would have even played with going to total black and white on this just to bump it up. We haven't looked at some of the, and I don't know how much we're going to be able to, but some of the tools that you have, not only in converting to black and white, but then in enhancing those images once you do. I think this would be a good candidate for something like that. You know, I don't know how quickly I can pull something like that off. Let me just take a quick look at something. All right, so we haven't done color in black and white yet. So this again is not something I'm suggesting you should have done because we haven't done it as a class, but I'm just gonna take a quick look at what might happen. So the first thing is to convert this to black and white. And I love, and you'll see when we do get into black and white that my favorite conversion is this black and white adjustment layer down here, which it's a pop-up menu in the layers palette. It is also in the layers menu under new adjustment layer. You can get it either place, but I hate these sub menus. And what it does is it allows us to, if I pull this down, allows us to control how much influence each color has from the original. Now there's not, you don't think there's a lot of color in this original. There is no green really, because that doesn't do anything. And there really isn't any cyan. There probably won't be much blue or magenta, but the top ones, the reds and the yellows, there kind of is. So we could probably pull a little more punch. Let's just look at that before and after. So that's a starting point. And then I'm just going to pop a composite layer above that and throw a filter or two on it. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this when it comes up because it's actually a third-party plugin, so I might have to share that. Yeah, I think you're still seeing the image in Photoshop. So let me reshare.
Wait. It says the image is processing. Give it a second. Okay,
Yeah, but that's just a dialogue. If you're not seeing something at the top of the window that says Color Efex Pro 4, then you're not seeing what I want you to see. So let me try.
It did say that.
It did? Okay, well, let me get back to that. Color Efex Pro 4. So by default, it came up with this filter that's called Detail Extractor. And let me turn it on and off. Can you see what that just did? Like how much in the face of the dime and in the mortar. Now, I'm not sure I like it in the marble, but this allows you to mask it out of any areas that you don't want it in. So that might have been a cool thing to add. I'm going to look at one other one here instead of that. There's one called Tonal Contrast that I use quite a bit, and it should give us a little better on the marble. But yeah, still look at how much it actually looks like it just made it sharper, especially if you look at the edges of the dime and that marble down below. So there's a few things like this that I do use to enhance an image like this. I'm not going to save this out, but if we, well, maybe I should just so we can see the before and after. Didn't have my OK button. There it is. So yeah, it's not sharing that. We need to go back into Photoshop. All right, now it's processing. I want progress bars to be a thing of the past. All right, so if now I can, this effect is on a separate layer, so I can turn that layer on and off and see, you know, what it is that it's done. And again, I'm not sure I like it in the marble or in the biggest part of that, but I love the dime, I love the mortar. So I could always just, and I'm not going to get into how I'm doing this just yet because that's for a future class, but I could remove that effect from everything except, and I probably it would have been faster to remove it everywhere and then just paint it back in where I wanted it, but I went backwards. I'm just going to do this fast. All right, so now I just have that you know, and these are subtle things, and I didn't, wasn't real careful with it, but sometimes a very subtle thing, if we look at that as opposed to our original, let's look at that. It's a little, it tends to look a little drab, right? That original one, whereas the other one has just a little more punch to it. So just wanted to give you, we're going to look at stuff like that a little further down the line. But that was just a good shot. It was a good candidate for doing something like that. So wanted to take a look at that. Then your repetition one, oh, there's two of them.
Yeah, I wasn't sure which one I liked better, so. That didn't work. Oh, I'm still muted. Whoops.
That's okay. So I like the fact that your light source is creating shadows towards the camera, but I don't think I like actually seeing the light source in the image. So for that reason, I probably, and I like the side light on this one, I probably go here for me more so than here. It's a little, the contrast on the whole image is a little bit better. I like the slight diagonal that you've got on it. Again, I don't really know what I'm looking at.
They're pencils, and I didn't notice this until now, but you can see the color of the plastic.
Yeah.
See how it goes red,
yes,
yellow?
I actually really like that. Yeah, it is more pronounced on this one, but yeah, that's kind of cool. And I'm looking at your point of focus, which is pretty much in the middle there, and the ends go out a little bit, and that's fine. It would have been tough as a pencil or a row of pencils. You're dealing with a pretty small object, so getting that in focus all the way across is a little bit problematic. But it's not out enough to be a distraction. Yeah, I think I like that a lot. I like both of your images. Let me throw this one in together with the other one so we can look at them together. So what do you think? What do you feel is your stronger image?
I originally liked the dime better just because it has a few compositional elements. Like I set up the rule of thirds on purpose, and I set up the leading line on purpose. But now that I see the color in the pencils, I kind of like that one. I don't know.
I think if it were me, I'd stick with the dime. I still probably would crop that top one just a little bit more left and right. I like the fact that you brought it down top and bottom, but I'd even go a little bit more on left and right. There's this little highlight area here on the left that we could get rid of, and then just even it up on the right. Maybe even give it a little more of an angle, might make it even more dramatic. But yeah, overall, I'm with you. I think the dime probably has it. So let's do that. All right, Ross, repetition. So this is this are you the one, I think, who is always, we're shooting like this little location here, this this desk or whatever it is that we seem to see a lot?
Maybe last week I went out to the quad and I did a lot of that.
Okay, so I know we've seen a couple of images from somebody that were in this, kind of an area that looks like this. But anyway, so yeah, you took a very simple subject and again, recognize that you have this repeating pattern all the way across. You created a pretty good diagonal out of it. I maybe would have even gone a little more so that this would have been in the very bottom left-hand corner and this would have been in the top right. And then the wood grain would have shifted a little bit as well and created a diagonal of its own. But with all that being said, this has everything we need. It has, and again, it's an abstract. Could easily pass for an abstract or a repetition, either one, or the diagonals. Again, you've got several elements here in such a simple image that there's not a lot to complain about. So it works pretty well. Now this one you have as spirals. I will tell you that that's a bit of a stretch for spirals. However, it is great for shapes. These concentric circles created by, the fan cover going down in, And then even the bolts on the blade, which are circular as well. And the blades, we don't really, even though they're a different shape, they don't stand out as much because the focus is on the front of this. I think this one's very dynamic. I think the cropping on it is pretty much spot on. You know, as I look at it, I think that you've done a pretty good job symmetry wise of keeping that right in the middle. I think the lighting is probably what it needed to be because, again, stronger light would have created some funky shadowing on all of this that I don't know that I would have enjoyed. But I still have these highlights on the center part of this this fan cover, which so I can tell what the light direction is. So I like that a lot. I like both of these, but for me, the stronger one, because it does have more happening and more going on, is your fan. Yeah, it's almost, you know, it almost creates this convergence thing as well, because you've got the spokes of that fan cover coming right down into the center. You got a lot going on in a very simple image, which is, and again, monochromatic. So color harmony works good. That doesn't feel good to have my arm up like that. That's, for me, that's your favorite one, or my favorite one, unless you disagree.
No, I agree with you.
All right. Samantha's up next. Let's see what we've got. So we start off with something kind of similar. We do have some circles here, both with the under part of the table and the center of the table, and then the lens cap that's on top of that. So, and I like you know, we've got a couple things going on, the spokes that are leading into that, they're creating leading lines into the center of this. We've got diagonals on the main supports of the table. The only thing that I would have done differently, who wants to tell me what I would have done differently?
Is it the chair in the top right corner?
Yeah, I think I would have pulled that out, and I see a little chair leg on the left as well. I think I would have pulled that out to make this even more of a you know, more of a graphical image than what it is. It's still pretty good. I mean, it's still really good, actually. I like all of the diagonals that you've thrown in here, and I like the fact that the expanded metal gives us repetition. So again, you've got a couple things going on here as well. Because of the fact that it's very monochromatic, other than in this little one spot that I see on the ground underneath it that has a little bit of a yellow cast to it. I, again, might have considered playing with a black and white version of this, but it almost is anyway. So yeah, strong image. I think that you definitely saw something here that is what I wanted you to see. So good with that. We have another circle, which again has things playing against it because we have diagonals in the brick going up. We have a different viewpoint for how we're looking at this, even though we kind of know what it is. I wish the junction box that's plugged into would have been more in key color wise with everything else. I mean, don't you just travel with a can of spray paint? Come on. What were you thinking? Oh, by the way, don't ever tell anybody I said that. The next time there's some graffiti somewhere, it's going to be, well, you know, Professor Campbell was telling people to do that. No, I wasn't. I'm just speculating. Again, my wish list of things that I wanted to see in an image. So very simple image, but again, doing what we're looking for, which is really just getting you guys to see things, to see everyday items in a little different way for what they are. And then we've got our repetition image, which I like the color play here. I like the fact that everything's neutral except for those, I'm assuming they're lights. Yeah, it looks, I can see little lights inside them. I might have turned them on. I don't know. Are they different colors or are they the same color?
I wish I could turn them on.
Oh, they don't?
Yeah, the way that the electrical is, like, I don't have a plug-in on that side.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe, you know, they're like little lights, so maybe it could also be that one is broken, but I plugged it in to the string and it didn't work. So yeah, bummed.
Yeah, more than likely you've got a break in there somewhere that isn't letting it. But still, it's a cool. It looks like 5 hornets nests, kind of hanging there, which I would not mess with. I hate bees more than anything, and hornets are the worst of the bees. But that's kind of what they remind me of. But still, it's a cool image. Again, we got a little bit of a tilt. I'd like to see that kind of straight up and down, that corner, where the wall meets where the 2 walls meet. But other than that, no real complaints about that. I think of all of them, I do think that I still like your table better, even with the chair that I'm seeing there. I think that kind of satisfies what we were looking for, unless you like if you like one of the other ones better, that's fine.
Yeah, I like that one. Can I tell the story?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was trying, the idea was to do this, but I was holding my camera and not looking through it. I was just taking shots to guess, and I'm staying on top of a chair. It was funny. But then I was like, I don't know if I actually like this, because I was looking at my camera. I didn't have my computer yet, so I took the circle one as an extra, just in case. But then they both turned out really cool.
Yeah. So viewpoint on this again is another element that you've got working for you. I don't want to be responsible for anybody breaking their neck doing their photography assignment, but I've done that many times. Oh my God, how many times have I not been in a position to get a shot? And I can't tell you how many times at weddings I've taken the camera not only as far above my head as I can get, but standing on a chair and above my head, or even sometimes on an extension pole, and you don't know what you're getting. You just hope for the best. But if your lens is wide enough, you're going to get a lot of stuff, even if you have to crop a few things out. So it's a technique that works pretty well. Just be careful. That's all. That's all I'll say. All right. So let's go on to Sammy's. So Sammy, I'm not sure which one, because this one is they're not named. So I'm not sure what.
Yeah, I kind of forgot to label them. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
This one was supposed to be my repetition.
So because of the trees, basically, I guess. Okay. Yeah, it's a little more subtle. So I'm just thinking about standing in that position. I think maybe, I don't know, maybe the path going back is a little straight, like maybe a little twist to the camera, like a little turn left or right, and maybe a little left or right with your feet movement. I don't know. I'm just thinking of things that might have, but this is this is another image that, taking this and doing some processing to it, making a black and white out of it, making it look like an old black and white horror film, like it was a nighttime shot. That would be really effective for something like this. A lot of those things were actually shot in the daylight, and they were just underexposed because they didn't have the equipment that they needed to go out and shoot at night. So they would do a lot of that stuff with sunlight and just underexpose it and make it look like it was moonlight, maybe put a little color cast to it or something. But I could make a case for that being a little spooky in that regards. And man, if there was somebody standing right at the top of that precipice, right where the path disappears, and I don't know who or what it would be, but if it were something creepy, that would be cool. Like I think you've got a cool spot here. I don't think this works at all in the summertime because you're gonna have a lot of vegetation there, but this time of year it definitely does. So yeah, it's a cool, creepy little spot that I think I'd play with a little bit. Figure out something to put up on there that would be even creepier. So what do we have on this one?
This one was supposed to be my minimalistic one.
Okay, so and it is. We just have, again, a bit of an exposure issue because this area and this area, if you had your clipping indicator turned on, man, they would be solid red. And the whole image has a little bit of a look of being overexposed. And then that I don't know. I'm trying to decide whether the white column or whatever that is on the right bothers me, And would I've cropped it out? Maybe not, because we do have a darker one on the left that we could say is balancing that. And it's not completely white without detail. So yeah, maybe compositionally you probably did it right here. I just think exposure was probably a little bit over on this one. But I think I like your path. I think as it sits here, it's just, you know, it is what it is, but I think there's a lot of potential here. I think this is something that down the road you might want to, hang on to this image, or if you find yourself back in that location again, something that you can do that might be kind of cool with that. So I'm going to probably go with your path over your leaves, because I'm a big stickler for exposure, and when something's a little under or a little over, it kind of, I don't know, just kind of doesn't sit well with me, especially when I can envision it the way it would have been, if that would have been a full stop and a half or something underexposed, and it's a JPEG, so I can't really go in and do that. But overall, so yeah, you picked, what did we pick? Repetition and minimalist. Okay, gotcha, cool. All right, Savannah. So we have, this is minimalist. It could be other things as well, but it's an interesting take on minimalist because we know what it is, but there's really no focal point in there for us to grab onto, which is kind of okay for that technique. We can just use this as a foreground silhouette with some cool color. Your exposure is dead on. This is exactly where the exposure should be for that image. So again, not a whole lot negative I can say about it. Right time of being in the right place at the right time. Yeah, would I have liked to have seen, I don't know, what would I have liked to have seen there? I don't know. I wonder what this looks like. I'm going to open it up and try something. I don't know if I'm going to like it, but I'm going to try it anyway. Because the sky has so much, I mean, I do love the dark blue that goes up to the top, but because there is so much, that area is so devoid of detail, I tend to always look for images that lend themselves well to a slimline like this, because it now becomes a panorama and it looks a little more interesting and inviting. But I'll take it either way, because I do love the color in this one, and you do lose that when you pull that color out. So I'm not going to argue with it. Now this one, so you got ahead of yourself a little bit. I'll tell you why in a minute. Tell me which element this is, because it's not labeled.
Okay, I really lack creativity, so I have to look everything up and just like recreate something that I see. And I looked up shapes in photography, and like shadowy like people were in the search, and I was like, well, my friends are definitely not gonna let me photograph them, so I have my tiny little Captain America, and I put him up on my window. I wish I could have like made it darker, but I don't know how to do that.
Okay, so the reason I say you got ahead of yourself is that our topic for next week is shadows and silhouettes. And so what you've gone for here is a silhouette, and you pretty much got it. I mean, pretty close anyway. And it really, in a case like this, and we'll talk about this in the second half of the class, but it really is about two things. Number one is the level of exposure, but the main one is making sure that you have more light on your background than you do on your foreground, and you do here. There's just, because of the fact that there is some light filtering in the window and kind of bouncing back up into him, that's why you're seeing a little bit of that. But I could take this image right now in about 5 seconds, make a complete silhouette out of this. So it's possible to do even with what you've got here. Between the two, yeah, I like this. I like the perspective of this image. I like the simplicity of it. As much as I like the color in this image, this one I think is the one that to me, it's way more interesting. Like I look at this and I'm like, all right, I want to know things. I want to know what this is. I want to know, why it is and all of that. I love the fact that the trees, even though we can see what they are back there, are very much out of focus, so they don't distract at all. Yeah, a couple of little minor things that might have help this, like that lower right hand corner, that little whatever it is part of the window that's sticking out. I probably would have cropped it in a little left and right to get rid of that, but other than that, that's a pretty interesting image. Probably the better of the two, so I like that one. And so it's a shame that you would have had half of next week's assignment already done, but now that you know how to do it, or you will know how to do it, you can go back and revisit this a little bit and make it even better. All right, now Sierra, we have abstract. Let me pull this over. Wow, this is cool. This is, so we've got a lot of texture here. We've got somewhat of a rule of thirds composition. It is on that right dividing line. It doesn't hit one of the impact points. It's sort of in between them, but it still qualifies as that. But the color harmony in this, or the color contrast rather, really strong. The lighting is just about right because it's soft enough so that we get a feel for the texture, but it doesn't create a lot of harsh shadows or anything here. So abstract, again, is all about finding things that we're just looking at in a little different way than we normally do. And this is definitely, is that really the color of that fur or whatever that is?
No, I put up the saturation on the picture a little bit, but it's kind of that color.
Yeah, well, the saturation boost definitely helped. And I'm guessing you did it on your other image as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it definitely worked out. So this one is labeled repetition. It could also be abstract as well. Are these gummy bears?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, you're making me hungry. Yeah, I love the different colors. If I were going to change one thing, and again, this is a minor thing because I really do like what you did here. I think I would have taken out some of those clear ones that are in the front because they're so bright. And if I envision this with just the reds, greens, and yellows, I think the color saturation is even better. But again, that's a minor thing. I do like it the way it is. And the bright ones kind of give my eye an anchor, someplace to rest on. So overall, good job. I am 50-50 on these. I'm going to let you pick because I like both of them equally.
Probably the abstract one,
the egg.
The first one.
I think, they both have impact. So, but that one, yeah, you just want to sit there and wait for that egg to hatch, and hopefully it's not a dragon. But yeah, good job on both of these. I love the color that you've got in both images. There we go. Again, simplifying things, creating shapes out of things. Yeah, good job. I like that. All right, Zach's our last one. Now, we do have the CR2s, the raw files on these. So I wanted to go in, and actually I'm going to open both of them so we don't have to go in and come back out. Oh, didn't work. Hang on, let me try that again. Huh. Well, they were both selected, but it only opened one. So we'll just do one at a time here. And is this, no, this window is not being shared. Let me go back in. We want to see it in Photoshop, not in Bridge. There we go. So when I look at this, I do like the abstract quality of it. I recognize the fact that we're probably looking at some type of graffiti, but or pattern or something like that. But it's not a recognizable pattern. So it reduces itself to shapes and things like that. I think what I saw, or what I wanted to see when I saw this image, was a little more impact color-wise. So I would pull like the vibrance and the saturation up a bit, probably add some texture and clarity to that as well. And then maybe play with a little bit, like I want to get a little more detail in the less detail in the highlights, or more detail in the highlights rather, and less in the shadows. So let me see. And it was just a couple quick adjustments there, but yeah. So the one on the left is the original. The one on the right is the one I just adjusted. Didn't take a whole lot, but I think, you know, I think it has a, you know, you started with a really good image of this. I just think that an image like this screams for a little bit of overkill. And I know it's hard to make yourself do that, because sometimes you're thinking, oh, it's too much, I've gone too far. And you could definitely, you know, if you pull that saturation way up, you're going to get to the point where your colors are going to start to bleed and everything else. But just a little bit, I think, gives us a little more of a palette. It kind of feels a little more liquid to me. But again, I'm not dissing on the image, because I like what you did with it. I just wanted to bump it up a little bit. So let me cancel out of that, and let me go.
And that was actually a table that like the theater department uses for painting. So it has just like,
so it's not a wall or anything. It's a table.
It was a table, yeah. Just like extra, you know, mess.
Gotcha. And well, why did it take me back to that window? Let's try this again. Oh, so I remember I did have I know what it is. You have a question mark in the file name, and it doesn't like that. So I'm going to take that out, and now it should let me open it. Yes, it did. So let me share that. Yeah, it does not like file or question marks or slashes or things like that in your file name. So, and we're looking at minimalist. And again, so we have a recognizable object, but we're looking at it a little differently than we normally do. I think it's just an exposure thing. I think it's just a little under. And we could play with a lot of these adjustments to tweak this even a little bit more. But I think mostly it just needs a little bit of exposure, upward exposure. The other thing is kind of weird. So normally most outlets have the grounding plug on the bottom, that, you know, so you've got the two slots that would be at the top and the grounding plug on the bottom, the more rounder of the three prongs. This one's up, you know, instead of down. So what happens when we, let's see where they've moved some things in here. Let me see where my rotation is. Nope, not there. Ooh, geometry. Nope. All right, well, I may not find it quickly enough to do this, but there is a rotation tool in, oh, wait, here we go. Could that be it? I have to do it manually, but it does work. Whoops, I went too far. All right, it's not doing anything that I want it to do, so we're going to cancel that. Anyway, the point I was going to make was, let me go back to Bridge so we can see it. So an outlet, when it's oriented the other way, can kind of look like a face. You have the eyes and the mouth. I've actually seen some pretty cool overlays that people make or paint onto outlet covers to make them look even more so like that. Might have been kind of fun to, I don't know, to flip it the other way and kind of play on that a little bit. Even though this one's got, you know, this is a looks like a hybrid 110-220 because of the side plug, you know, the T shape on the one side. Normally that's for a 220 plug rather than 110. So I'm not sure if this is a hybrid or not, but if you envision a plug with just the two slots and the grounding plug and then flip it upside down, you can make some cool faces out of that. Might have been fun. to play with that. Overall, again, even though I'd like to see a little more saturation and a little more texture in this is probably for me the better image. I like it even more now that I know it's a table and not a wall. Yeah, boy, there's probably a lot of stuff that's a lot of projects were done on that table, I would imagine, over the years.
Yeah.
I don't know I wonder if you could strip all that back, what we'd actually find underneath. Interesting. All right. So overall, guys, I was really, really happy. Like I was really pleased with what you guys picked, how you executed them. And again, as I look now at just the best of the best here, we have 13. We should have 12, I thought. Do I have something in here that shouldn't be? Looks like...
You put both of mine in.
Which one are your two?
The orange and then the worms.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so, yeah, I got you. Yeah, we wanted to keep worms. Even though I like that one in there, it kind of fit. All right, let me get you guys up where I can see you. These were the submissions that we had, so we're going to vote on these. We'll start upper left and work our way across. Again, you can vote only once. You can vote for your own image, and then if we have a tie, we'll go back and re-vote. So you can use your thumbs up or your hand, or just raise your hand and we'll see it. So let's start with the painted table, the abstract there. Okay, let's go to the shapes, the Carly's squares. Gotcha. The abstract snake. Oop, hang on, keep them up, guys. Okay, gotcha. The abstract egg. Okay, the abstract circles. The abstract playground. Rolled on a dime. Captain America. The path to nowhere. The repetition, what did you call those? The worm, some kind of worm? Some kind of worm. I can't remember.
Yeah,
but anyway.
worms. Just
Gotcha.
call them
Worms. Okay. The fan face. And then the circles, table circles. So this was a hands down winner. The snake is our absolute. And was that Caleb's? Yeah, it was Caleb's. Okay. So let me make a note of that and then take a look and see if we're going to throw a bone anywhere else. All right. Yeah, I think I have to. I think this is so tough because as I look at these, like every single one of them has something about it that I like, but I have to be a little stingier. So that one we gave a nod to. I'm going to go with the egg, the worms, and there is one more. I'm teetering here. No, we're going to stick with the egg and the worms. I think those two, or those three rather. I even like the way they look together. That's pretty cool. All right, so we've got Sierra gets one. And the worms were, where were they? I thought they were down at the bottom here. Brooke, okay. Brooke gets one. So Sierra is maintaining her lead at this point, but slimly. We've got 1, 2, 3. We got 3 or 4 of you that are kind of right on our heels here. But those are I'll give you the standings a little bit more in detail. So let's do about 10 minutes here. We'll come back at 5:35. We'll go through the shadows and silhouettes, and then we'll end with a quick assessment one-on-one, and we should get you. We probably still get you guys out of here. Most of you a little bit early anyway. So we'll see you in 10 minutes. Let me look at something here, guys. Just your chat thing there, Carly. You do dangerous stunts too much for comfort. Well, no pain, no gain, right? Nothing ventured, nothing gained, and risk versus reward. It all comes into play there. I tend to go with risk versus reward more than anything. Okay, so we're going to look at two things. Again, we're kind of doing this logical progression through composition and things that are somewhat related. And the first one of those that we're going to get into right now are silhouettes. So let me resize that window a little bit. So we're going to show you, I'm going to actually work backwards through this window. We're going to take a look at a number of silhouettes. Some of them are smaller images because a lot of these were just pulled off of the internet just for, demonstration purposes. So what is it that makes this a silhouette? I mean, so a silhouette basically reduces your subject to shapes. A two-dimensional shape for the most part. There's very little depth in an image like this. But what has to happen in order for this subject to be a silhouette? Because if you look at it, you recognize that it's shot probably at sunset. So if you've been outside on a hilltop in the sunset, you recognize that there's actually a lot of light out, right? So what has to happen to turn this into a silhouette? What do you think the photographer did intentionally to do this? Good, Carly.
Put the subject in front of the sun, the light source, so it only lights up the back.
Yeah, that's kind of it. It's more of an exposure thing where they intentionally underexpose the foreground. So the fact that the sun is behind her and that sky is behind her, which is very bright, there's a big difference in the brightness level between that sky and between any light that might be on her. Because if you think about it, that sunlight's coming forward towards the camera, but there's nothing there. You can see there's like no structure, there's no wall or anything like that to bounce that light back onto her. So the difference between the exposure in that sky and in her is pretty dramatic, and it makes it easy to turn this into a silhouette. The other thing is exposure. So if that sky were exposed what you might consider a little more normally, meaning that it was a little brighter than it is, then you probably would see a little bit of light, sort of like we saw in the Captain America shot, where a little bit of it's bouncing back in. So you control it in two ways. One is by backlighting the subject, and the other one is making sure that the light on the background is far greater, excuse me, than the light on the foreground. And then you can further refine that with exposure by knocking that down. So here's another one, same idea. Again, if you look at the sky, it's a beautiful sky, but what creates that silhouette is the fact that the exposure is dropped to a level to make the sky very, very dramatic and colorful, but without letting any light that might be hitting the people in the foreground record. So that keeps it very dark. Sometimes there's a little more whimsy to something like that. I like this one where this girl's walking her dog, and if you look at the shadows behind her, the trees are actually hands that are reaching out for her. So you can create, you don't have to necessarily look for something that already exists. You can create something like that. This would qualify both as shadows and silhouettes because these appear to be shadows on the wall. The dog's casting a shadow on the foreground, but the subject is definitely in a silhouette. So that's kind of a cool one. Again, so same thing. Look at the exposure on the water behind this bird. It's so cool. It's so liquid gold looking because the exposure has been dropped down to the point, when you start to underexpose something a little bit, not underexposed to the point where you're losing detail, but just a little bit under does intensify the color. And that's what happened here. And it's also what helped to create a silhouette of the bird. I also love the fact that they shot this from a slightly oblique angle so that the shoreline creates this diagonal, because it would have been very static, up and down, left and right otherwise. So I like that diagonal. Here's another example of a silhouette. Again, reducing your subject to a shape, but most of the time it's a recognizable shape. When you look at a silhouette, more often than not, you know what it is. You don't need any more information to let you in on what it is you're seeing. And in this case, it's pretty obvious what we've got here. Pretty monochromatic. And again, the exposure has been dropped to a point, a normal picture, that sky behind would have probably been featureless white blown out, and you would have seen the soldier holding the gun. But dropping that exposure down creates the silhouette that we're looking for. Here's another one where, again, dropping exposure really is a cool thing for what it does for the background, not just for the desert areas, but even the sky, bringing some color back into that sky that wouldn't be there if this was up a little bit higher. And even though this is not a true perfect silhouette, I can see some detail in that foreground balloon. I think it still qualifies, but wow, compositionally, that one's pretty cool. We've got balance between the two balloons. We've got a little bit of rule of thirds. We've got, this is one that we do have depth in because we can tell how far those mountains are by the tonality of them. So that's a pretty cool image right there. Again, most people I think would take this image and it would be lit to the point where you can see that couple really well. You can see the foreground, and the sky probably would have been blown out for the most part. But reducing the exposure so that sky records like that creates the silhouette, and again, gives us a shape. Even though we see a little bit of detail in the foreground, it's pretty much a silhouette for the couple, and I like that. So again, we've got our light source being the sun is actually behind the foreground item. So it's just a matter of controlling exposure. Drop the exposure down to bring that color in the sky and turn your foreground into a silhouette. Pretty simple. So just to show you, so this was done a couple of years ago in a class. We just walked outside, and this was the lighting that we had. We just took a quick snapshot of this guy, and then did another snapshot where we changed the exposure to expose more for the background and for the sky. And that's what we came up with. So nothing more than dropping the exposure took us from the image on the right to the image on the left. There are some times, in fact, a lot of times, where you can kind of create this effect with a raw file, especially in Camera Raw or Lightroom or something like that, just by dropping the exposure in that. In fact, we probably could have, these are two different shots. Yeah, 47, 48. But we probably could have taken this 48 and dropped the exposure in the processing and gotten something that would have been very similar to what we had in the image on the right. So silhouettes, again, to recap, we're looking mostly at reducing your subject to shapes. And you do that by making sure your background is far greater than your foreground and adjusting the exposure to make sure that happens. So that's our silhouettes. Now, shadows are a little bit more complicated. And let's take a look at these. So this was also shot, that same shot that we just showed you outside. All we did was back up, change the lens focal length, and allow the shadows that he creates from the sun being behind him to stretch towards the camera, and it creates these leading lines. It does some compositional things that lead us to this silhouette. We don't really need to see detail, although I could bring that out if I wanted to. Let me go into, it's not file name. How did I have these ordered? Nope, wasn't that either. All right, we'll go with that because I want that to be the top image. So that's a simple use of shadows. Here's another one where, again, right time of day to do this. This little girl, if this is shot at noon, is not going to create a shadow like that, but either very early in the day or very late in the day where the sun's low on the horizon is going to create, you know, this shadow. I like the fact that, you know, you could have done this with as just a shadow picture, but I like the fact that we see what it's coming from, and it's this, you know, short little girl who's creating this long shadow, and I think that's kind of cute. Let's get down to this one. So this is an interesting one. I'm not sure, honestly, if this, I don't believe this shadow would occur naturally with a ring on this book. I believe that was probably adjusted. I know the top part of the heart would be probably about right, but the bottom part, I would think that would be more rounded. So I think somebody probably created this. But again, recognize the fact that you can create, if you're good enough with Photoshop, you can go in and do things with shadows that sort of make you see an image a little bit differently. There's another one or two in here coming up. So this is one that concentrates just on the shadows. You know, we don't really know who these people are. The guy in the middle does kind of look like he's got a helmet on and a backpack, like these could be, you know, so it's hard to say what we have exactly. But we're focusing on the wall and the shadows that stretch towards the wall, and then treating the shadow on the wall as if they are the subject, they're the person. So that's kind of an interesting one. Using shadows as a graphical element, love this. This is, the contrast in this has been pumped up so that the whites are very bright, the blacks are very black, and now all you've got is just this repetition of pattern along the wall, along the walkway, and along the right-hand side, creating this converging line back to that archway in the background. So this is a really cool use of doing shadows as well. So easiest way to create shadows is to have the sun or your light source behind your subject. Let it create those leading lines towards the camera, but be very, very careful about your exposure. You don't want to over, or in some cases underexpose these images too greatly. You can play with that a good bit, and you'll probably know, like if you try 3 or 4 exposures, you're going to know which one it is that really looks the best, you know, where you don't have blown out highlights. There are a little bit here in this part of the grass, but I think if that exposure was dropped any lower, I think the whole image would have a darker look than we want it to. Again, so a couple things going on here. We have a light source behind our subject. We're looking just at the shadows. Because of the light source and the focal length of the lens, the shadows kind of go out and create this convergence from the background. But we also have this pattern, these diagonal patterns, both in the bricks and in the lightness and darkness of the bricks, that kind of intersect with all of that and create a couple more interesting visual elements. So again, just remember, the more things, without getting overly complicated and overly busy, the more things like this that you can throw into an image. This is still a very simple image, but we've got shapes, we've got shadows, and we've got diagonals. All of them work together. This is one of my favorites. This is such a simple shot, but it is so cool. Again, taken to black and white. We don't need to see the color here. These forks are just leaned up against the wall, and the light source is a very, very hard-edged light source, meaning that its position from the subject is makes it physically small to cast very sharp shadows like that. It could be a spotlight of some sort. But you know, if you had a desk lamp or whatever and you held it back too far, you would not get this. It would have to be, your light source would have to be in very close to try to get a shadow like this. But man, this one was done to perfection. You've got diagonals, you've got, you know, the simplicity of this, everything about that image is cool. I love that. Again, you can use an image that is separate from the shadow. I think this is the way most cats think. So, you know, just kind of giving a little insight into what's going on in the cat's brain, I think is kind of interesting. All right. And then this one, again, strong light source. We've got the sun filtering through some type of slats overhead, some type of roof or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what, but they create this cool pattern. And the fact that they left it in color and oversaturated it a little bit, we've got sort of a black and white background with overly saturated legs in the foreground, which I think is, you know, it's an interesting image. Oh, we missed a few. Let's see. This one, I don't know. We must have had them ordered funny. Again, backlight, control the exposure to drop it down to the point where it's very much underexposed to get detail in that sky. But because of the fog and because of the shadows created by the buildings, it makes a really, really cool image. So this is when a couple of these are mine. This is just shot with an overhead light. Where it was backwards to forwards is very important to create the shadows that show the muscles rippling in this guy's back. If you go too far forward, the back is going to be in shadow. If you go too far back with the light, he's going to be lit too much. You get it right overhead, and you get this, you know, these patterns of shadow and highlight on his back. And then, of course, there's lights in the back corners that rim him so that he doesn't intersect with the background too much. This is another one using shadows coming through trees to create some diagonals in towards the model. Simplifying it by going to black and white. A couple things along those lines. Sometimes you, again, this is all about exposure. This is all about, this girl is backlit only. She from the sides. Not directly behind her, but there are two lights, one from either side that rim lights her, and then control the exposure to pull that down to the point where we see what we need to see, but we don't see anything more. We see the shape. It's very intentional to make sure her chin does not intersect with her arm, that we've got this little gap and space in between there. A lot of little things about that image that made it work. And then sometimes you can use shadows and exposure to kind of create this effect where you turn a torso essentially into a landscape. You know, if this were even in a little tighter, you might not recognize it for what it is. It would look just a little more like a landscape, but a lot of texture, some filtration done to increase that texture, contrast to increase the shadows without burning out the highlights. Just create that look. And then, whoops, hang on. Where did that one go? Let me see. That might be the last one. Yeah. So again, using the sun to my advantage and putting the model up against this wall with the sun coming in from the right to, and again, her face, notice her face is turned towards the light so that we don't create half of her face in total shadow. We're actually lighting the mask of her face, but allowing the shadows that she creates to come down from her, also from the windows, from pretty much all of the elements in the scene are creating a shadow down in that direction. This also has balance with that window on the left and with her. She stands out because of the white top against the dark background. A lot of little things, but mostly this was for the shadows, I think, are what made that the most interesting. All right, let me get out of that. So the assignment for next week is going to be to create one image of a silhouette and one image with shadows. And the shadows can be, again, try not to just show a shadow. Try to give me something interesting, some reason for that shadow to be cast, or some mystery to make me wonder what it is that's casting that shadow. You can include the subject or not. It doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but you know what I mean? Like make it appropriate for whatever you're doing. The silhouette, I think, will be a little easier if you just nail the exposure. But look for something, you know, if you looked at that one that we shot, let me go back for a second. This was not a great image for a silhouette, this one. Because if you look at all the other images here, the one thing they have in common is that our subject is very much separated from the background. Whereas if you look at that, he's got some intersection with trees, with buildings. We still get the rim lighting on him. And, you know, this was done just quickly as a demonstration, But you want to, if you're going to do this outside, you want an area of, as much as possible, very much open sky, so that you don't have these distracting elements in the background, and it's going to make your subject stand out even more. And then, like I said, with shadows, wow, sky's the limit. You can use the sun, you can use an indoor light, you can use a flash, all sorts of things. Or you can do something very small scale on a tabletop with, you know, a flashlight or some LED lights or whatever. You guys are the creative ones here this week, so you get to pick what you're doing. Any questions on the assignment? Words are starting to come to me a little bit more fluidly. All right, so what I'm going to do now, we're going to start and go through, talk to each one of you for just a couple of minutes.